Okay, so most women that I talk to, they come to me and they tell me these things about these guys. A lot of times they'll end up getting themselves into bad situations with men. And a lot of times the reason why this is happening is because when they get with a man, instead of focusing on the right things, they focus on things that are important, but they aren't everything, right? So when I talk to most women, they tell me they're like, "Oh, I met this guy and he made me feel good, right? And he made me laugh and he was so charming and I got butterflies in my stomach, right?" And that's usually all they look at, right? They want to know, they want to feel really good around him, which is important. It's important that you are attracted to a guy. It's important that you really like a guy. All those things are important. But it's also really important that you look at a guy in perspective of whether he's a good man for you to be in a relationship with, right? Is he actually relationship material for you or not? Because not every man is going to be somebody that you want to get into a relationship with, even if you feel really good around him, even if he's somebody that makes a really good date for you. And so, what is the difference between a man that makes a really good date and a man that's somebody who is relationship material? I'm going to go over 7 different things that I think are really important. This isn't by any means an entire list of things that are important for you to find in a man, but they're just some of the things that I'm going to list in order for you to get started if you're not really sure what you should be looking for in a masculine relationship material man for you. And so, my name is Matthew Coast, and welcome to the Commitment Connection. And before we get started here, if you're really serious about having the relationship that you've always wanted to have, go to thegoddesscommunity.com and consider joining our community there for free. Okay, so what are the different traits of a masculine relationship material man? The first one that we're going to go over, we're going to go down the list, starting with number 7, and then go all the way down to number 1. And number 1, in my opinion, is by far the most important one. So number 7 is that he wants to be a leader. And so, masculine energy man, what he does is he wants to be in charge, and it makes him feel really good about himself, and he makes decisions, and he's assertive, and he doesn't have to do this all the time, but it's something that he's willing to do and that he usually likes to do, right? Like some of these things, it's like he doesn't have to have all of these qualities, and doesn't have to be doing them all the time, but they're things that make him feel good, and the more of these things that he has, the better off you are in terms of meeting a guy that you want to be in a relationship with. And so he's willing to take risks, and he's willing to be wrong on things because he's taking those risks, right? And he's willing to screw up, and he's got courage, and that's what it means to be a leader, right? You go out and you try things, you do things, you're willing to make mistakes, you're willing to do stupid stuff, right? And in order to have what you want and create what you want in your life. And that's why people follow them, because they see that person with the courage and going out and doing things that sometimes might even be stupid, but they're like, oh my God, I don't have the courage to do that, so I'm going to follow this guy who seems like he knows what he's doing, right? And so if you can, allow him to lead, right, and you're willing to follow him, a lot of times I'll get women, and it's really interesting if you want to kind of test where you are and like your willingness to allow someone else to kind of lead you, which a lot of women in this day and age who are strong, independent women, they're in the workforce, they have a hard time kind of giving up control and letting somebody else lead. And if you want to test that, one of the ways that you can go and do that is to go out dancing, go do some partner dancing sometime, because you'll find out pretty quickly if you're willing to let a guy lead you or not. If you go and do some partner dancing and he's like trying to spin you and you're like, oh no, right? And it can be kind of a wake up call, because anything that you do, like things that you do there, are things that you'll do in your regular life as well. Dancing is a really, really fascinating thing to me. But yeah, so he likes to be independent, and he can rely on himself in order to get things done. And that's one of the biggest characteristics of a masculine energy man, is that he's a leader. And so if you're here with us right now in our chat, make sure that you say hi and tell us where in the world you're watching this from. It's always cool to see how many people are all over the world watching these live streams. So number 6 is he wants to protect you. And so this is another masculine energy thing, right? He does this even when it doesn't even necessarily make sense. He'll be on your side. He'll be there with you. He wants to protect you. He'll put his arm around you. He'll shield you from things. He'll cover you up if it's raining outside and you guys forgot your umbrellas, and he puts his jacket over you, right? Because he's protecting you. He wants to take care of you. He wants to protect you from harm. He wants to protect you from bad emotions. He wants to protect you from other men who might be creepy or encroaching on your space. And it makes him feel like he's strong and he's masculine and he's capable. And a really cool thing for you to do is, if you can compliment him on being strong and making him feel like, and feeling like he's your protector, and telling him and complimenting him and telling him that you feel like he's your protector, this can really boost his confidence and make him feel proud of being around you, which is a really powerful and awesome thing that you can do here. And so number 5, we just did 7, 6, and now number 5. Number 5 is he has standards and boundaries. And this is, we talk about this on the women's side as well, where we're like, you have to know your value, and you have boundaries because you know your value. And so a masculine energy man, a man who's relationship material, he has boundaries and he has standards, and he knows when he doesn't like something, and he's willing to communicate it, and he doesn't put up with nonsense from anybody, whether it's you or anyone else. And he makes sure that that people know where his boundaries are if people try to cross them, because he's very confident in his value, and he knows what he's okay with and he knows what he's not okay with. And just to throw that out there, it doesn't mean that he's necessarily rigid, right? He can be flexible when it makes sense for him to be flexible, but he also wants to make sure that people aren't stepping on his boundaries or taking advantage of him or you or anybody else when they're with him. And so if you get what I'm talking about right now, make sure that you say, I get it, in the chat. Make sure you say, I get it, in the chat, if you get what we're talking about. If you get what I'm talking about. So number 4 is he's honest with himself and others. So he speaks his truth even if other people don't like it. There's a book that came out. It's called Radical Honesty by Brad Blanton. It's a really good book. You should go check it out if you haven't already. It's a really, really interesting read. And it's really powerful to be in your truth and come from a space of truth. And a really relationship material man, he's going to be somebody who wants to be honest. He's going to be somebody who confronts things when he doesn't agree with something, because truth to him is more important than just simply feeling good. And it's not necessarily a rigid thing, and it doesn't necessarily happen all the time, right? He might take other people's feelings into account depending on how how masculine or how logical versus emotional he is on that spectrum. But he knows what it is that he wants, and he isn't afraid to talk about it. So it's one of those things where, if you talk to him about whether he wants a relationship, whether he wants kids, whether he wants marriage in the future, He's one of those people that isn't confused by that, right? He's not unsure about it. He doesn't change the subject immediately and start talking about something else because he's trying to avoid the topic. He's willing to talk about it because he's honest about it and he knows what he wants, even if it's something that you don't necessarily agree with or something that you don't want. That way, everything's on open, and he's not trying to hide anything, right? And a really masculine energy relationship material guy isn't going to want to hide something like that. And if he is hiding something like that, it's a huge red flag, by the way, in case you don't know that. So he cares about people knowing that he's a man of his word. And so another cool thing that you can do here, if you can recognize the fact that he's a man of his word, he'll feel like you can really see who he is as a man. And so if you can compliment him on that, or talk to that, speak to that when he's around, or to other people when he's around, he'll feel like you see him in a way that other people may not see him. And so number 7 was he wants to be a leader. 6 is he wants to protect you. 5 is he has standards and boundaries. 4, he's honest with himself and others. 3 is he wants to please you. So he wants you to be happy and feel good when you're around him. That's a relationship material man. He wants to make sure that you're happy and that you're feeling good. And so he cares about your needs and what it is that you want. Not so much that he allows you to walk all over him, right? He's got boundaries and stuff, but he wants to make sure that you're being taken care of. And he does this for everyone that he cares about in his life. And depending on how much he does this, he might even do it for strangers and other people, but he definitely does it for people that he cares about, and specifically he does it for you. And he generally wants his friends and people in his life to be better off because of his presence. Like, he wants to do good. He wants to create good in the world and give to people in his life. And if he doesn't want to please you, if he doesn't want to help people in your life, again, this is a red flag and it's a bad sign, right? And one of the things that you can do, I'm going to give you another thing that you can do, is you can give him easy ways to please you, because it'll make it feel like you're someone that he can be with long term. So he wants to please you. Number 2. And so if you have your own things, like what do you look for? Just throw in the chat if you have some ideas about things that you specifically look for in a relationship material man. Throw it in the chat, because there's other things that you might be looking for as well that I don't put on this list. And so it'd be cool to see what other things people are talking about here. So number 2 is he has passion and purpose in his life. And so he's moving towards something in his life that's important to him. Usually it's a job or hobby related, and it's something that he really wants to do, be, or have in his life. It's something that's really important. It could be a huge variety of different things, and it's something that you want to ask him about, right? Talk to him about what are his passions. Who did he want to be when he grew up? Is he on that path to being that person, or creating whatever he wanted to create it, or do whatever he wanted to do? And once you find that out, a really powerful way to do something with him is to show that you support him, right? Because he wants to have somebody who supports him in becoming who he wants to become in his life. And if you can be that person for him, if you can show him that you can see him becoming that person that he wants to become, you can easily become one of his best friends, in addition to being his lover and his partner. And so you want to check that out. Does he have passions? What are his passions? Is he on kind of path to going after his passions? And if he is, can you be somebody that supports him in doing that? And so the number one most important thing, in my personal opinion, is taking responsibility for himself, his actions, and his life. This is the difference between a child, the mentality of being a child and the mentality of being an adult. So it's the difference between being a boy and being a man. It's also the difference between being a girl and being a woman, by the way, in case you weren't sure about that one. So he doesn't whine about where he is in his life, how things aren't fair. He doesn't blame anything outside of himself for how his life is going. So, things happen in life, right? And we don't control everything that happens in life. You don't control the weather. You don't control, weird things that might come up. Maybe you'll have some kind of weird illness. Maybe you'll have something weird that'll come up that he can't predict, right? And instead of like blaming things outside of himself and it's, their problem and it's this and blah, 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 right? He takes responsibility for his life. He admits when he's wrong. He admits when he screws up, and he's focused on growth and creating a better life for himself, right? If you can find somebody that's focused on growth, that's the number one most important thing that you can find in somebody who's looking to that you're looking to have a relationship with, because people that are focused on growth usually are the best people to date, because they're continually bettering themselves and making themselves better people and better partners and better lovers, and they tend to be more interesting and more fun to hang around. They tend to have better personalities. They tend to have better outlooks on life. And so he focuses on what he can control in his life. So just going back over them again. And at the end here, if you have any questions about your situation or anything, make sure that you go into the chat and leave your questions there so that I will be answering them at the end here in a minute. So number 7 is he wants to be a leader. 6 is he wants to protect you. 5 is he has standards and boundaries. 4 is he's honest with himself and others. 3 is he wants to please you. 2 is he has passion and purpose in his life. And number 1 is he takes responsibility for himself, his actions, and his life. He's focused on growth. And so, again, before I get to the question and answer, if you're really serious about having an amazing relationship where you feel seen and loved and appreciated and cherished, make sure that you go to thegoddesscommunity.com and check out joining our community there for free. I'm like, all right, so what do we got? what do we got here? What kind of questions do we have? So Blessed says hi from Botswana. That's a new one. Shauna says, hi Matthew, I love you so much. You changed my life completely. I am extremely happy thanks to you. Awesome. I love to hear stuff like that. It's so cool to hear about impacting people's lives and hearing about how I've changed their lives and made them feel better and made their lives feel better. Helena says, hi Matt, watching from the airport. Awesome. Helena is an awesome person. She's one of my favorite people. She's one of my favorite coaches. She really made a huge difference in on our YouTube channel when we were first kind of growing. And I feel really grateful for her presence in my life. And we always talk about some funny things on the phone. I'm in Europe right now, and so sometimes we're chatting and we talk about some funny things on the phone. Sometimes it's rants. We were actually just talking. You know what? I'm not gonna get totally sidetracked here, but I think Helena's awesome, and I really appreciate her being here, and I appreciate her watching from the airport. So thank you for being here, Helena. So Bless says, love you so much. You changed my life. Wow, I changed your life too, huh, Blessed? Awesome. You're right. Awesome. Cool. So Julie Tree says, I need a leader. Yep. Mountain Trio says, great reminder. I quickly realized where my masculine energy is causing a conflict. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Hi. Raquel says, I love watching your videos. God bless you, Matt from Cyprus. Well, thank you. Glad you like watching them. Julie Tree says, "Hi Matt, I need a protector. Come get me from Anderson." Okay. So Damara says, "Hello Matt, watching from Wisconsin. It always feels wonderful to hear from you." Oh, thank you. Thanks for taking the time today to come on. Warm wishes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So lots of people, they get it. Mary says, "My grandma wants to know how old is too old to date." I don't think it's ever too old to date. There's actually they did this study where they went into nursing homes and they looked at the amount of sexual activity that people in nursing homes were having. They found that people were actually having lots and lots and lots of sex in nursing homes. So I don't think it's ever too old to do whatever you want to do. If you want to date, if you want to do whatever with at whatever age you are, as long as there's people out there, there are people that are probably willing to date you and get into relationships with you. And I mean, there's lots of different needs, right? So you have lots of different needs, whether, even if we're not talking about like getting into something where it's actually sexual, you can still get lots of different of your needs taken care of from an emotional or a physical standpoint, just from hugging and kissing and talking and discussing things. And it's always great to have a good partner in your life, so that because it makes you feel good. Just to be honest, it makes people feel good. People feel good when you have a good partner, and just make sure that you're getting into a good situation. All right, so Damara says, "My ex was only about his pleasure in the bedroom and always about how I can serve him. However, he had the other qualities. It makes me confused sometimes." Yep. It can make you confused, for sure. So Damara says, "Sometimes he makes me feel I am being too picky and acting like it's never good enough when I stated my needs, and it leaves me feeling confused. Any advice?" Well, it sounds like this is your ex. He's an ex, so I don't know what kind of advice you want about your ex, if you've already left him or he's left you or whatever. So Shirley says, "I had to let my long distance relationship go. He stopped calling and texting. I'm viewing your episode of 3 texts that make him come back. Should I try to get him back or let him go?" Well, I mean, if you're in a long distance relationship, it's going to be really difficult to go and get him back, right? Like, I don't know how far away you guys are from each other, but it's going to be incredibly difficult to go and do that. Because it's, I mean, you can try it. It depends on what kind of a relationship. It depends on whether it's something that he's interested in. It depends on why you guys broke up. So there's a lot of different depends on there. So Alicia says, "You are so full of wisdom." Thank you. Dee Dee says, "Hi Matt, I often hear that women are the conductor of emotions and feelings in a relationship. What are the men conductor of?" Well, a lot of men are the conductor of the direction of the relationship, and a lot of men. It depends. It depends on I don't know that I'd say that women are the conductor of emotions and feelings. I think that women experience emotions and feelings on a much higher level. I think that men tend to be more rational about things, and I think that both things are incredibly important in a relationship. Men in most relationships, in most situations, not all, women these days tend to be making a lot more money, and they tend to be taking on a lot of masculine roles in the workplace and in their lives, and even sometimes in relationships, many times in relationships. And so it kind of depends. It depends on what kind of a guy you're with. That'll depend on what kind of an experience he'll create for you. And so if you get one of these men who are really relationship oriented, relationship material, masculine men, you'll find that there's a lot of things that he ends up bringing from, protection, from making you feel safe and secure, from just direction for what you're doing in your life. A lot of times men can end up calming women down and helping them kind of get control of, like, from being in this world of being too emotional, and bringing them back down to earth, and like talking to them about like reality. I've seen guys do all kinds of amazing things for women in relationships, and it kind of depends on who you are and what you bring to a relationship, and what kind of guys you attract, and what kind of guys you want to have in your relationship. Because women a lot of times bring like they can bring kind of this nurturing, caring, loving kind of attitude to a relationship, and men can bring just different sides of themselves, and bringing in kind of more of the structure and more of the direction. So it really depends on you, and where you are, and what you want, and what complements you in particular. And that's one of the reasons why when we talk about masculine and feminine energy, it's not necessary that you are in your feminine energy. There's plenty of relationships out there, if you are more of a masculine woman, to attract a feminine guy. And I know relationships like that. I know guys, I have friends that are married who are in relationships where the guy is like super kind of feminine and flowing, and he's creative, and he's fun, and he's emotional, and the woman is like down to business, and she's very strict, and she makes sure that everything's safe and secure, and she makes all the money in the relationship, and they love it. Both of them absolutely love it. And so it really depends on you, right? And I think that in this day and age, it's not as simple as saying women, bring the emotion to the relationship, and men bring, the financial security, and they, bring strength and emotional security and physical security, and, all these things, right? Or, whatever, because it depends on who you are and what kind of a relationship that you want to have with a guy. So Rika's Homie Space says, "Hi Matt, thank you for your vids and insight. I have a question. I am to meet an online date talking to for 2 months next week, and coming from your video, he has all of it. Awesome. Wasn't a question in there though." Shirley Brown says, "Matthew, help. I waiting for the knight with shining armor." Well, I wouldn't sit around and just wait all the time for something to happen, right? I think that there's some doing that needs to happen if you want to attract a really great guy. And I wouldn't just sit around and wait for him to come in and get you. I would go. I mean, and you don't necessarily have to be actively going out and finding guys, although I do think that can help. And I also think something that can help is just communicating with friends and family, communicating with your network, and talking to people about the fact that you're single and that you're looking, and that can be kind of embarrassing. But at the same time, it can also be really beneficial to you if you tell people that you're single and you're looking, and ask them if they know anybody that's looking as well. I'm not a big fan of going out to bars and clubs, and so I think that unless you're into bars and clubs, unless you're really into drinking, bars and clubs probably aren't the best place to go. I think internet dating people can, have obviously, I have some clients that have gotten married from internet dating before. However, it can take a lot of work and it can be very, very difficult. You have to weed through a lot of different things, especially now because everybody's either on some kind of app or some kind of online thing, or not everybody, but a lot of people are. And so the field is really, really big, and people are connecting that normally wouldn't. And there's a lot of guys that are just hooking up, and we live in the hookup culture. And now I'm going off on a rant here. So Mary says, Grandma wants to know if you'd like to go have coffee. She's joking, of course. I'd love to have coffee with your grandma. That'd be fun. That'd be fun. KH says, should I still put interest in a guy I've only met once? We talk text, but been talking for over a month. Kristen, he says he interested to meet again, but starting to give up. Okay, so you've been talking with a guy for over a month. He says he's interested to meet again, but you're starting to give up because he's not moving forward. Well, here's my suggestion. I wouldn't be texting and talking as much, right? Because if you want to have a real relationship and if you want to meet him up, I mean, obviously he should be pushing for a meet. But one of the challenges that a lot of women get into, and I keep hearing this over and over and over again, is they'll try to develop this relationship over the internet, or they'll try to develop it over text message or some kind of messaging app or over the phone or something. But you want to meet up. And so if you're talking and doing all this over the phone, right? Or over text message or over Messenger, all of a sudden you're destroying a lot of the mystery and a lot of the intrigue and a lot of the stuff that you'd normally be talking about if you actually met up. And so if you want him to kind of push things forward, just let him know that you're interested, that you'd love to meet up with him again. And when he tries to talk to you outside of that, just keep it short. Just keep it really short and just say, hey, I gotta go, but I'd love to hear from you again, and I'd love it, if we met up again soon. And so just keep it short and let him know that you're interested in meeting up, and just wait for him to make the moves. Because if you're giving him lots of emotional validation and you're talking to him lots and lots over text message, then it's like you're quenching that thirst that he has to meet up with you through that methodology instead of through actually meeting up and being with you. And so I'd keep it short. I'd keep more intrigue. I'd keep more scarcity, and I'd pull back a little bit and just be like, hey, when you're ready to do that, like, let's meet up. The mindset that you want to have is when you're ready to meet up with me, like, let's meet up, but I'm not going to have this relationship over the phone or over text message with you. That's the mindset that you want to have, and so you always want to keep it short. Okay, so Bij King says she's watching from UK. Awesome. Florida, Denmark. Finally made it. Awesome. Cynthia says, hi, Matt. How do I talk to my man about him picking on me too much? Well, you have to set boundaries is what you have to do. So if a guy is picking on you and he's like saying things and mean things and stuff, it might be a part of his culture. It might be something that he grew up with, right? A lot of guys, especially if you're from the East Coast of the United States, a lot of people on that side of the country, they use sarcasm normally and regularly in conversations. And so if you want to set up a boundary around that, you have to communicate what it is that's going on with you, and just let him know that it doesn't make you feel good, right? And so when he says stuff like that, you can, in the moment, something you can say is just like, just kind of pull back a little bit and just let him just talk about it, how you're feeling, right? And if you want to set up an actual boundary so that you're communicating exactly what is going on with you, what you want to do is you want to first tell him like what you want, like long term, right? Like say something like, yeah, I really enjoy hanging out with you, and I really love spending time with you, and I want to get closer to you. But when you talk to me and you pick on me like this, it really kind of makes me feel like it makes me feel like it's really unattractive, and it makes me feel like I want to pull away from you, and I don't want to pull away from you, and if you started treating, stop picking on me and just talk to me normally, like in the future, you might want to say that in the future, if you just, instead of picking on me, just talk to me really sweet and kind, that would make me feel more attracted to you and want to spend more time with you and be closer to you, right? And when you talk like that, right, you first start with the thing that you want, where you're saying, I love hanging out with you and I really want to get closer to you. And then talking about like what he's doing in terms of it being unattractive and being something that makes you want to pull away and makes you feel gross or whatever it makes you feel, right? And just talking about it in terms of being attractive or not being attractive, which is something I talk about in my Love Frames program. Then what you do is, and then at the end, asking, saying, hey, in the future, if you could, just instead of picking on me, just talk to me in a really sweet way, like it would make me feel so much closer. And then at the end of it, just ask him if he can agree to that, and you'll end up getting an answer from him, and it'll change things to make it serious, and you'll find out a lot about what's going on with him when that happens. And sometimes, a lot of times, guys do that just because they do it with their friends, or they do it as something that they've learned kind of growing up. And I'm not a big fan of it. I've never been a big fan of it. It's something that I used to do in my family. And like when I would go home, I changed things when I was in the military. I changed the way that I spoke because I found that being sarcastic all the time and picking on people all the time, which is something that I naturally and normally did from when I was growing up, created lots of enemies, and people didn't like me because of it. And so I changed it, but I noticed when I went home, like I would just get into it all of a sudden because that was something that I normally and naturally did. And it took a long time to kind of really like pull that out of me. Okay. Hopefully that answered your question. So Sarah says, hello, Matt. I start liking like every guy I talk to. Is that bad? Well, it's not necessarily bad as long as you're making sure that you're looking to see if he's got the traits of if you want a relationship, making sure that the guys that you're talking to have traits of a guy that is relationship material, and then doing all the things that I talk about in my program and in my materials. I just I'm almost finished with the Forever Woman program, which is this new program that I've developed that I'm giving away for free, by the way, if you join the Goddess Community. So go check out thegoddesscommunity.com if you want to check out that free program that I'm going to be giving away as a part of the free trial to join the Goddess Club. So Julie Tree says, no bars, no clubs, no drinking, no smoking. We do God in this house. Just need a man to match my needs. All right. So DD says, I'm dating a guy that has kids and he has to travel long distances to see them, but he seems like a dedicated father. I want to compliment him on his dedication, but I don't want to scare him off. We've only been on one date. Is that too much? No, I mean, as long as you do it in a way where you don't have any expectations, and you're just doing it in a very matter-of-fact way, where you're just like, hey, I think it's pretty, I know that you have these kids, and you told me that you travel great distances to go and see them, and I just think that's really cool. I think it's really awesome that you're such a dedicated father that you'd go and travel these long distances to go and make sure that you're seeing your kids, because I know a lot of men that don't do stuff like that. And so it really says a lot about your character and how awesome you are to go and do that. So I just want to acknowledge you for that, right? Saying something like that, just making it very genuine and just straightforward and just acknowledging him and saying it. I don't think there's any problem with doing that on on the second date or whatever. No problem at all. I don't think that should scare him off. I mean, if I was on a date with somebody and I had kids and I told my date that I went and traveled these long distances to go see my kids, and she told me that I was like that it was really cool, and that she sees that I really care and that I'm dedicated, and she thinks that that's really awesome, I'd be like, you're awesome for saying that, right? Like, guys love compliments, and if you give them from a very genuine, matter-of-fact way without expectations, it's not going to scare them off. It's not going to scare them off. Florence says, how long should you give a man that you're in a long-distance relationship? For the past 6 months, he is saying that he is trying to put in for jobs over the internet and waiting for a possible interview. So he doesn't have a job. You're seeing a guy for 6 months, long distance. Have you met this guy before? Have you seen him in person? I don't know. That sounds like a strange situation to me. Mary says, Grandma said she wasn't joking. And for me, not to put words in her mouth. Okay, that's funny. Melissa says, can two people who come off strong-headed make a relationship work long term? Yeah, you got to, there's got to be some acknowledgement and understanding of it, right? And so two people who are strong-headed, they can make something work as long as at least one person or the other is willing to compromise their strong-headedness for the other person. So yes, it can work. Can also create a lot of friction, as you probably know, which is why you're asking me about it. Cynthia says, can't wait for the Forever Woman program. I'm almost done. I wanted to complete it today. I'm almost done with it. Should be done very, very soon. Rika's Homie Space says, sorry I mistyped my question. Basically, my online date will be in my city for 10 days, and I was wondering if it's okay to ask him ahead if he assumes I'll stay in his hotel. Well, I would just assume that you're not going to stay in his hotel. So he's going to be in your city for 10 days. Yeah, I mean, it's your city, right? Like, why would you stay in his hotel? You wouldn't. And that's something that you just need to make sure that you have a boundary of. And, and if he tries to get you to stay in his hotel, you just got to be, if that's not something that you're ready for, then you need to be very clear when he tries to get you to go to his hotel that you're not going to his hotel. And I wouldn't go to his hotel at all until you're ready for what would happen if you went to his hotel. And so, I mean, he traveled to your city from somewhere else. It's kind of a big deal. Florence says he has a job and known him when he worked together before. So you've known him, like you met him, like you've worked in person with him. Cynthia says, thank you. Kathy says, I get it. Florence says he is a biomed engineer. It's not answering the question. The question is, have you met this guy in person before? That's the question. If you haven't met him in person, that's a huge red flag. So it looks like that's all the questions that we have. So, all right, so everybody, that looks like it's it for this live stream. Thank you so much for being here again. If you're really serious about getting into an amazing relationship, the relationship that you've always wanted, make sure you go and join the Goddess Community at thegoddesscommunity.com. The Goddess Club. It's called the Goddess Club, and it's at thegoddesscommunity.com. And so you should definitely go and do that and check it out. Oh, we got a couple more. Hold on one second. Phoebe says, me and my husband go through ups and downs over him not initiating attention and displays of affection. How can I get him to do this without giving him the cold shoulder or being demanding? Well, you can be really, really sweet, and you can tell him how sexy and attractive it is, and how amazing you feel when he touches you and displays of affection, or whatever attention and displays of affection are, right? So one of the things I talk about in my Love Frames toolkit is this idea of framing things in a way of making it really attractive, because men want to feel like they're really attractive. And so what you can do is, when he does stuff, just talk about it being in terms of being really attractive or being really unattractive. And so, you're not going to get him to do it, right? You're definitely not going to get him to do it if you're trying to nag him or being demanding or doing any of that kind of stuff. He's just going to rebel against you and fight against you. But if you're talking to him sweet, and if he does do something and you're just like, oh, that makes me feel so good, and it's so attractive when you do that, and it turns me on so much, and all that kind of stuff, when you're talking about things that you want him to do, he's far more likely to do that kind of stuff because he wants to be attracted to you, right? And if you reward that kind of behavior when he's doing it, that's really, really powerful. It can be a really, really powerful thing to do. Linda Lopez says, if a guy is doing everything right, planning dates and going out a few times or once a week, should a woman bring up relationship talk after 3 months? So he's doing everything right. He's planning dates. He's going out. You're going out a few times a week or once a weekend. Should you bring, are you guys, have you been sleeping together? Are you exclusive? I would bring up, you can definitely talk about relationship stuff at that point. I mean, by far, you should have been talking about relationship stuff by the 3-month point. You should be finding out what he's interested in, whether he's interested in a relationship, whether he's looking for something long-term. I'm not sure if you guys have slept together or not, but you should definitely have talked about it before that. And so if you guys have, then you definitely should be talking about it now. If you've gotten physically intimate and you haven't talked about it, then yes, you should absolutely be talking about it, and you'll find out very quickly what his ideas are on it just by asking him and bringing it up and talking about it. Rika's Homie Space says, thanks, Matt, for the advice. Love it. You're welcome. Kathy says, thank you, Matthew. You're welcome. Melissa says, and we haven't had no friction yet. Still too new, but I don't want to push him away, being too independent. Yep. Don't push him away. Phoebe says, thank you. Tough Love says, you may as well tell me to go unicorn hunting. Yeah, a lot of men feel the same way about women. Like, they feel like good women are really hard to find. A lot of women feel like good men are hard to find. I mean, there's good people out there. If you believe that there's good women out there that men can find, if you believe you're a good woman, then I guarantee that there's a good man out there for you, right? And so I would say that it's not a unicorn. There are good men out there. There's lots of great men out there. And they're looking for good women. And one of the things, one of the things I talked about at the beginning of this live stream was this whole thing about women generally going for guys that make them feel good, not guys that are good men to be in relationships with. And so if you're going out and you're dating and you're just going with guys that feel good, that make you feel good, that make you laugh, that make you feel butterflies, that make you feel giddy and stuff, which are important things that you're attracted to them and you feel that way about them. But you're finding that they're all not good guys. What you want to do is you want to start switching things up a little bit and try going out with guys that maybe you're not so head over heels for, but are potentially better guys, and see how that goes, and just switch up the types of men that you end up going out with, because a lot of times we have patterns of behavior. And so some people have imprints, right, of what kind of a person that they're attracted to. And if you grew up in a family specifically without a father, or you grew up with a very bad relationship to your father, you may have some kind of imprint where you are really attracted to men who are not good for you. And so that's one of the ways of doing that. Another is, that's one of the things that you want to think about, right? And so what you want to do is just switch things up and start trying going out with guys that you wouldn't normally go out with, because you might find some surprises there. And I think that can be a really powerful thing for you. So that's my tough love for you, tough love, 1984. Linda says, he said he wants something serious when we first started seeing each other. Thank you for helping. Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, are you, you didn't say whether you're exclusive though. Mary says, your laughter is so attractive. Thank you for all you do. You're welcome. I'm glad my laughter is attractive to you. Shirley says, I love your cute dimples. Oh, man. God's Girl says, boyfriend is self-employed. Business is great. He texts and calls 2 times a week or more, but our quality time is poor. He's always tired. That sucks. Sabah says, hey, London. God's Girl says, I don't want to be clingy. I wait until he calls, texts, or whatever. I go out with friends and family, but I miss him. Linda says, again, we really appreciate all the advice. You and Helena have literally opened my eyes and changed my life. I'm sure Helena would love to hear that. I wish this was taught in elementary schools. It would save women a lot. There's a lot of things I wish were taught in elementary school. I wish I was taught this in elementary school. I wish I was taught a lot of things in elementary school. Hello, thanks for your advice. It has been really helpful to me, says Riata. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. God's Girl says, he takes me out and spends money, but intimacy is low. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to get going here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. You are definitely the best part of our audience and our community here. You're definitely the best part. So thank you for putting your trust in me and allowing me to be a part of your journey. And so thank you so much for being here with us. Fernanda says, which sign would you say is the best? Okay. So thank you so much for being here. Again, go check out thegoddesscommunity.com if you're serious about having the relationship you've always wanted. Thegoddesscommunity.com. Go check it out. Check out the replay, Splunk. And I will speak with you